Hey team!
It's Klaxoon.
Hey team, it's Klaxoon.
Hey team, it's
And we are live. Let's go. Hello everyone. Welcome guys to this new Klaxoon expert webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Mehdi. I work at Klaxoon and I will be your host for the next 30 minutes. Today we are together to have a great session about a trending topic in the world of work right now, which is employee experience in the future of work. So we know pandemic redefined the workforce in many ways and required every organization to adapt to new methods. So the employee and candidate experiences have been greatly affected by this shift, and today represents huge challenges for HR departments and every organization. And to talk about this topic, fortunately, I'm not by myself. I would not be insightful enough. And we are really happy to have Ira Wolfe with us. That is a real HR expert. So welcome, Ira. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. It's great to see you again. And thanks so much for hosting me today. Appreciate it.
And that's a pleasure, and we'll have a great discussion about all those topics that are like really in the trend right now. Just before starting, a quick message for our viewers. This webinar will take about 30 minutes, as I said, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. So feel free to share whatever question, reaction you might have during the session, and of course to comment what we will talk about. Or just send some love to Ira and me, and yeah, we will answer everything at the end. And first, Ira, before getting started, we wanted to introduce you to our audience because you have quite a journey, right? A professional journey. So we're curious to know more about it. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do today?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking that. And it's been quite a journey, and I'm still on the journey. I'm an older baby boomer, and a lot of people are either at their final destination or they believe they are. And here I am again as an older baby boomer. I was sharing with you right before the business. My business for the last 27 or 28 years has been Success Performance Solutions. That's how we got into the HR space, primarily focused on pre-employment and leadership testing. That was my niche. But I actually just sold that business, whereas most people that might be in their 50s, 60s, or 70s would say that's the end of the road. That's the retirement. Here I am. I sold that business. I'm still involved with it, with Dame Leadership, who purchased it. But I've got 2 or 3 other businesses or areas that I'm continuing to develop. So that just goes on. My earlier life, which came up my first career, which also fits into today's story, is I actually started out as a dentist. That was my career path. I practiced for 18 years. I loved everything about dentistry but dentistry. And people were always shocked at how did you make the move from dentistry to business? And dentistry is a business. And I loved the practice. I loved developing it. I loved the customer service, the experience, working with teams, hiring people. We had 16 employees. We had different shifts. We had different personalities. So it was a natural, to me, it was a natural progression. But we live in a world today where people are changing jobs all the time. They're changing industries. And so my story sort of fits. Maybe I was premature. Because I've been doing it all along. So the world sort of caught up to my journey. That's the story.
That's amazing, and I think that's also inspiring. I always ask that question because that's great to see we can have like kind of like a first or even like several careers before like finding our way in our professional life. So that's always super inspiring to hear like this kind of stories. And that's funny because you mentioned it, and this is something that we can see on your LinkedIn and communications. Mm-hmm. So you introduce yourself as a millennial in a baby boomer body. Can you tell us like a little bit what it means for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a baby boomer body, if you can't tell that. And so it's got a number of years on it, and oftentimes feel the aches and the pains. However, my mind, it's really about mindset. And maybe it's even a Gen Z mindset now. But it really is about how you think about the world. A lot of it relates to, for anybody who's listening, which I didn't identify as this until I learned about it just a few years ago, was about a growth mindset. You know, some from the work of Carol Dweck, fixed mindset, growth mindset. People associate with a job title. You know, there were certainly so many opportunities I recognized along the way that I didn't try, because what if I'm not very good at it? You know, focus only on what you're good at, become better. And the reality is life passes us by. We miss a lot of opportunities. So kind of that millennial part is living with that even though chronologically I'm a baby boomer, that there's a lot of opportunities. There's chances to continue to develop, constantly learning, and really you can't be afraid of that. And millennials right now, by the way, those millennials are almost 45 years old. So yeah. We're not talking about teens and those in the 20s. But again, so maybe I'm more of a Gen Z at this point, but I think it's more of a mindset. Having a more youthful mindset that there's still a lot to live for. And who knows, my mother just turned 99. So technically I got three more decades.
Of course.
Can go, and right up until the last year where she started to lose some memory. She's still articulate, still lives alone. But always was learning something, whether it was on the news or reading something. So I think that's the future.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I obviously love that and respect that. And myself, I tend to think like it's always, interesting to look at the younger generations, because they're the ones, that are like really like changing the way things are done. So if you keep track on that, you'll be still relevant at any time of your career or life. So I think that's really inspiring to have like that message. So yeah, thank you for breaking that down and sharing that with us today. Now, that being said, we can jump into the topic of our live today. And we have a first topic we wanted to raise with you. And it's, the topic of candidate experience. We're kind of like going to break down the journey of employee experience by its first steps, which is candidate experience. And this has been like totally disrupted by COVID and new ways of working today. To you, how to improve the candidate experience now and make sure it doesn't generate frustration, confusion, and so on? Like, how can we make it the most efficient possible?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you talking about that. So there's two acronyms that I've used. One is I wrote about in my book, the other one developed afterwards. So within the candidate experience, we talk about its reach is REACH. So the first aspect of candidate experience is how did you reach them? What's the best way to get that? And people are struggling, and it used to be very easily, you just post a job in the newspaper and people applied, or you post a job, post a sign in your front door and people applied. And now it's a lot more complex. There's a lot of different avenues. So the first is how do you reach them? The second is once you reach them, it's not good enough just to post an ad, especially in this environment, is how do you engage the candidates right from the beginning, whether that's interactive, whether it's the messaging, whether it's video, whether it's audio, whether it's chat, whether it's metaverse, whatever it is, it's how do you, as soon as somebody sees that there's an opening or they proactively apply, they want to work for you, you're a Google or an Apple or someone like that, how do you apply, and then you have to immediately engage them, have that conversation interaction. The third step, the A, is the application. So I've gotten them engaged and they go, yeah, I want to submit my application, my resume. Is what's that application process look like? And sadly, it's still based on what the application process looked like 50 years ago. We just took a 4-page paper application and threw it up online. And there's many companies that still use that. On the good news is there's many companies that advance that. So we have the people getting into the funnel by reach, engage, and apply, but then you immediately have to have a conversation. There needs to be some type of communication, ongoing communication, almost an immediate communication, whether that's an instant interview or a chat or a text or just simply for many organizations, just respond. People still, I mean, the number one complaint from applicants is ghosting. I submitted an application and, and maybe even completed an assessment up front. I never heard from anybody. So it's REAC. And then the final one, which I know is the topic of today, is hiring. That hiring doesn't stop at the job offer and HR and recruiters back off and you go, okay, now it's your responsibility. The onboarding process is critically important because, more than 50% of people that are hired in the first 90 days don't work out. That's expensive. It creates high turnover. And a lot of that is just conditioned back to the onboarding process, that people show up, especially in a work environment. They're not prepared. They don't know their way around. It can be done really, really well, even in a hybrid and a remote work environment. But it wasn't done even very well when people showed up in person. So there's a lot of work to be done, but it's a huge opportunity for organizations, for businesses, small and large. And the bar is pretty low. So they can easily take some simple steps to do that. Now, the second acronym beyond the reach is, and this was developed after, and this is from UX and user experience and customer experience, was an acronym called, we call it FCDD. So I'm just going to say it's F'd up. So, but it's a GP. We'll keep the GP rating on the show. But it represents frustrating, confusing, disappointing, and distracting. And so if you took each of those steps, so let's take, for instance, the application, because that's an area that needs to be better. What frustrates the candidate? What confuses the candidate? What disappoints the candidate? What distracts the candidate? Now, the distraction may be the least of the problems, unless you have I've seen this happen, is on the application page. There's all these ads posting and there's pop-ups and there's things. Those are distracting. The goal is to get them to start and finish their application. Sure. But the frustrating, confusing parts are really from an application stage where I would, direct everybody's attention. People are disappointed when they don't get hired, but they're also disappointed if they start the application, they have to walk away and they lose all the information. And frustrated. Yeah. So what you want to do is take every step, and if you use my acronym or use your own, a company uses their own flow from an audience, all the way through, we got their application completed. What does that look like? How did we respond to them? How did we onboard them? Identify what frustrates them, what confuses them, what disappoints them, what distracts.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And you've been describing it. There are like so many ways people can get disappointed when they actually apply and look for a job, and that's the last thing you want to do, right? So I hope those keys you just gave will be insights our viewers can use. So thank you for that. And you've been mentioning it, and actually it links up with our second topic, onboarding. As soon as you found the right candidate, everything went well. Or maybe not perfectly, but actually you've been hiring that new joiner. You still need to onboard them. And this process has been greatly disrupted by the new ways of working. For instance, it maybe was not perfect before, and now it's even disrupted by that new way of operating. So for you and today in the world we live in, what are the ways to successfully onboard new joiners in those new settings?
Right, and in all fairness and transparency, I mean, onboarding is not my niche. However, every stage of this involves employee experience. So it's about the experience. It's about how people feel. So when you get hired, oftentimes it was great. We'll send you the job offer. People submit the job offer back. Your first day is 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. and we'll send you a lot of paperwork, and watch for the link or come in and sign all the papers. So people used to do it in person, and now they do it digitally. But onboarding isn't making sure all the paperwork is completed. That's part of the process. It's the most frustrating, confusing, disappointing, and distracting part of that whole process. People are excited. You get that, you need to seize that initial moment where they just got hired. They're ready to start. They may be a new job. It may be their first job. They may be leaving a really bad experience behind. So the opportunity to greet them, to welcome them, to not just make sure that they complete all the paperwork, but to introduce them to maybe some coworkers, to their manager. What's the expectation on the first day? This doesn't have to take a lot of time because you can use a video. It's like, hi, I'm Ira. I'm your new manager. I'm really excited about seeing you. And here's 3 team members. And here's what you can expect. And this is why I came to work. So there's so many ways, synchronously and asynchronously, that you can welcome people on board. You can use it through, there's a lot of technologies that allow that to happen, to get that blueprint or that map, what the journey is going to look like. But so often there's just this dead silence as they sign the paperwork, and we're really excited about seeing you on November 1st, and then there's nothing, or maybe an occasional email. I take examples from conferences that do well. I mean, there's conferences that I go to that I hear nothing, and there's other ones that there's a lot of engagement. There's a buildup. There's messaging. There's almost a drip campaign of, hey, we're really excited, and we only got 9 days left. That just doesn't exist in most companies when they're welcoming an employee, and many times it's much shorter. So it's not like you have to do this for days and weeks and months at a time. Very, very inexpensive. But if you hire somebody and you have an opening, you want to bring them on board, welcome them. Don't have them show up the first day and it's like it was a surprise that you were coming. Oh, we forgot you were showing up. And I've known that to happen, on more than one occasion.
Yeah, definitely. And I can only relate, I mean, on a personal scale, but also with everything we hear about people working in organizations. And definitely this is something that was really interesting, the build up is also a way to make the first days more easy, actually. And, to be already comfortable with this new organization you're joining and everything. I'm taking that because I mean, with Klaxoon as a tool, this is something that you can do. And we have for instance, use cases of organization that almost every day on the build, and before this employee joining, they will ask them survey questions. They will send them some quizzes about the company just to make sure, they can already start giving messages on the organization that person is going to join. And yeah, that's mostly engagement and reaching out and building before actually joining and starting to work, basically. So that's really inspiring, and I think that's something that is the whole process in the end. So great and super interesting. Thank you for that answer. So already our third topic, and this is more, before our Q&A session related to employee engagement and keys to leverage it in organizations. So first, maybe can you explain why for you it's critical to engage employees in the whole collective process, and how to reach keys to get the best levels of employee engagements?
Yeah, absolutely. So why is it important? Because we have emboldened employees in a labor market, at least in the U.S., and I know that the best, as well as many of the developed countries, the European countries, is there's going to be a shortage of employees. It may loosen up a little bit with if we enter a recession or as we enter a recession. But the projections for the next 10 to 15 years are there are going to not be enough qualified, skilled employees to do many of the jobs that need to be done. So the reason that people have to step up to the plate is simply because there's no other choice. The competition is just going to be fierce for this. I've been writing about it for 20 years and it'll continue. Ultimately, it's about how do you create a better experience? And people have talked about it. An experience is not that we pay. We're not going to work. We know our experience isn't great. It's hard work. It's dirty work. It's complicated work. It's complex work. But we're going to pay you more. Well, now that, although people are enticed and incented by hopping a job to get more money, it doesn't retain them. And 50% of all the people last year who fell into, whether they quiet quit or they quit in the Great Resignation, regret the decision because they walked from one toxic environment to another toxic environment. So ultimately, companies are becoming more focused on having a better culture. But creating a culture, my analogy is, or my metaphor is, creating a culture is like building a house. You can have a beautiful house with a gorgeous front lawn and you're ready to move in, but it doesn't become a home until people move in. And many people live in a house, but it's not necessarily a home because it's the emotion, it's the experience, it's how people feel about one another. So we talk more about the experience driving shaping the culture than companies trying to organize the culture, and the outcome is a good experience. Really, it is how people feel. Do they feel joy? Do they feel happy? Do they have less anxiety, less stress? Do they enjoy coming to work? Are there opportunities to learn? Do they feel respected? When people are building a culture, those may be words on, bullet points. They may be posters, but mostly times when you talk about culture, it's usually more kind of the architecture, the blueprint. They're not necessarily emotional words. So when we're talking about our philosophy and our approach is really going back to that employee experience, or the candidate experience. That determines your culture. That's what that's about. And therefore you have to engage. So one of the first things that we do is people want to know that they can identify, that they can align with that. So there's 4 levels of connection that people have to have. One is a connection to self. So they need to understand what their values are. Many people don't. I mean, I was in this business and it took me 40 years to figure out what my message was. What was my why? What was my purpose? So if you're familiar with Simon Sinek and starting with why is where that. But then it's also how do I connect with others? And in order to connect with others, they need to understand who you are. You need to understand who they are. What's their purpose? So we have connecting to self, connecting to others, but then connecting to the role. And we talk about job fit for years and years and years, but it's not just necessarily you have the education, the experience. Is that what do I want to get out of it? What's going to keep me engaged? And then the last one, which is how most organizations approach it, is a connection to the organization. Are the values aligned? Can I provide you a means to help you to help you grow and thrive? I got to tell you, companies are doing a really, 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 really bad job. Gallup, on their recent State of the Workplace environment, and most people know that they measure engagement, and that for decades, engagement's hovered around 30%. Maybe it's all the way up to 32%, which means almost 7 out of 10 people are not engaged. But what they've started to do, they've started to look at engagement and thriving. Only not in this year's 2022 State of the Workplace report, is only 9% of employees are both engaged and thriving.
Wow.
50% are not engaged and not thriving. So if you take it to the other level is, hey, I'm not engaged, but I'm going to keep showing up for the workforce. That's not good for the company.
No, yeah.
You find that they're not thriving, which means that they felt sad, anxious, stressed, worried, or they were in pain the day before. They're not then something's wrong with that culture, and how it gets addressed is having a better experience. So we can go on and on and on about that, but my message here is that there's a real opportunity. Employees feel emboldened, and for a good reason, because the good employees have options where they go, and even in a recession, and to really start focusing on whatever you want to call it. It's their employee well-being, their mental health, but ultimately it's about the experience they feel. They can still be stressed, they still could be anxious. You can't pile on, you can't make it worse. But when they show up for work, they need to feel that this is a better place than I have at home. This is a safe place, and it's in an environment that appreciates me, it respects me. I feel like I have an opportunity. I feel a little bit of hope, or I feel a lot of hope about the future.
Wow, perfect. Thank you for those insights. And yeah, I mean, I can totally again relate, and this is also like one of Klaxoon's like standpoints is how making sure everything is either like both thriving and doing the best for the company they work in, and so that it's a win-win situation, and that's what everyone wants basically from employees and organization. So yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for that. Time is running so fast, so we're already like kind of like at the end of our webinar, and we want to take questions and have our like little Q&A session. So we still have a few moments. I'm just like checking the questions right now. Okay, we have a first question of Dennis. So I quote, "I would like to know what he's thinking about contractor onboarding versus employee onboarding."
Yeah, that's a great question. And I guess my impulse and my instinct says, I'm not sure it should be different. I mean, if they are a contractor, you still want them engaged. You want to have them create the opportunity to thrive. So I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of difference. Obviously, there's a functional difference of the paperwork and what their legal standing is. But if they're in your company, your ultimate goal should be that not only are they productive, but that they become your brand ambassador. So I'm not sure I would differentiate how I would treat one over the other.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Ira, and thank you, Dennis, for your question. Other question from Marie-Hélène. How do you measure engagement? Yeah,
well, that's up for grabs. I think measuring the engagement, as I shared with the Gallup report, engagement's not everything if you don't have engaging and thriving. So I think it's really important are they engaged at work, but what's happening in their personal life? What's happening outside of that? I'm not sure we want to measure a thriving report because people can be thriving and not engaged at work either. But I think that combination, expanding that combination to engaging and thriving, and then looking at the total employee experience. And the total employee experience is going to be, do they feel, again, some of the measures are pretty simple. And the numbers are really low, by the way, that come out of this. They asked, millions of people, did they feel respected yesterday? And I was like, 1 out of 7 people said yes. I mean, so they're showing up for their work and they don't feel respected. They don't feel that they learned anything. They didn't feel happiness. They didn't smile or laugh yesterday. Those are some of the basic questions. So if I was looking at employee engagement, I think it's important to see what's important to the company. How does that fit into the culture? But then go beyond that and ask those basic, very simple questions. Did they learn something yet? Did they feel like they learned something yesterday? Did they feel respected yesterday? Without that, then I'm not sure engagement doesn't work.
Yeah. I totally see what you mean. And yeah, thank you for that answer. And thank you, Marie-Hélène, for your question. Perfect. Ira, it's already the end of our session today. It was great to have you. Thank you so much for everything you've been sharing. Now I will give you the floor really quickly, to maybe tell us where we can follow you, tell us what's coming soon for you, any announcement you would like to do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's a number of different ways that you can reach me. My website is very, very easy. It's irawolfe.com. It's irawolfe.com. And that'll take you to a lot of places. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn, as Mehdi knows. So you can please connect with me. Let me, let me know you listen to the show and the episode, and connect with me there. I also have a website called Adaptability Toolkit. And we talk about as you can see in the background, the AQ adaptability quotient. We have a growth mindset module there, a coaching module. And we also just introduced an assessment called Why, and looking at alignment. And that's also, we're working with companies now using that on onboarding to find out what's their why, what's going to drive them, what's their motivator. And research has shown that there's 9 whys. So, find out how you can help them live their why, know their why.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm going to do the same for Klaxoon and invite you guys to make sure you follow Klaxoon on our socials. We do this kind of webinar every other week, basically, and we try to make it as interesting as today, every time. So yeah, thank you so much, Ira, for everything you've been sharing for our session. And thank you guys for following that session today. Thank you for your questions, and I will see you very soon. Thank you, Ira.
Yeah, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Have a good one, guys. See you.